So Jessica, how do you feel on the day of your turning 18? I know, but how do you feel?
Shalom, Israel. I'm Abir Ariyah. Today we're going to go over birthdays. Many people out there don't understand that the celebrating of birthdays is evil. In other words, it's sinful. And our forefathers never celebrated birthdays like you find today, the customs of the heathens. Let's begin in the book of Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter, and let's start with verse 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 28. Observe and hear all these words which I command thee, that it may go well with thee, and with thy children after thee forever, when thou doest that which is good and right in the sight of the Lord thy God. When the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them and dwellest in their land. Take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them.
Stop. So the Most High was giving Moses and the Israelites commandments. The Israelites are you so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, indigenous people of North, Central, and South America. You make up the Israelites. He said that he said, do not follow after them and be snared by following after them. Let's read that verse again, verse 30.
Verse 30. Take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them, after that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise.
So we were not to inquire or be curious on how the other nation served their gods. We were supposed to kill them out of the land of Canaan and do not inquire about their gods. Now we're going to see how this played into birthdays. Let's go to Psalms 106, and I want to begin in verse, give me 1 second. Psalms 106, verse 34.
Psalm chapter 106, verse 34. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them.
So we're going back, we're reading in Psalms, explaining a little bit of what we read in Deuteronomy. When we got to the land of Canaan, we did not destroy the nations as God commanded us to do. Read on.
But were mingled among the heathen and learned their works.
We became curious on how they served their gods, and we learned their works, being mingled among the heathen. These heathen back then in the land of Canaan is what you know today as Africans. All right? They were the descendants of Ham. Read on.
And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them.
And it says, and they served their idols, which became a snare unto us. We got entrapped into serving their gods. Why did we serve their gods? Why did we not serve the Most High, the true and only God? Let's go to Proverbs 3 and explain why. Proverbs 3, and I want verse 31.
Proverbs chapter 3, verse 31. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways.
This is the reason why we serve their gods. because we envy the other nations. We envied our oppressors. We want to be like them. Like many of our people today, you want to be like the other nations. You want to be African, you're Afrocentric. You want to follow their customs. You want to follow their gods and have Nefertiti and these gods. Well, go ahead then. Because if you're African American, so-called, you're an Israelite. You're not African. Their gods, they worship the sun god Ra, the moon, the stars, the earth, crocodiles, beetles. If you follow the Hindu religion, they worship animals, cows. They have gods with 8 arms. We're not like them. We envied our oppressors, and we what? And we were not to choose none of their ways. So let's begin. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And when we finish these scriptures today, hopefully it'll be edifying to many of you that may not know that it's wrong to do to celebrate birthdays. Let's begin with 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and I want you to read verse 6.
1 Corinthians.
I want you to read for me.
This is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 6
and 7.
Now these things were our examples, to intend we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play.
So Paul was writing to the church of Corinth, and he was explaining to what happened back in the time of Moses. That we lusted after evil things, and we wanted to follow the ways of the other nations. What did we do? We went and built a god, Molech, and we began to worship him. And it says the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. How does this tie in a birthday? The same premise. We sat down, we made eat and drink, they made offerings to their gods, and they rose up to play. They began to go into lewd and lascivious behavior. They began to revel and party and get drunk, like many of you do on birthdays. You see in the earlier clip in the beginning of this video how this guy was hanging in the toilet drunk. From what? From this reveling and this behavior that was promoted by what? Worshipping of other gods. All right? Let's jump on down to verse 20.
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20. But I say that these things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and the table of devils.
So you got to choose who you're going to serve. Are you going to serve the God of this Bible, the Most High, through Christ? Or are you going to serve the God of your mind or the God of the world? You cannot say that you believe in the Most High, in Christ, and you believe in what the world do. You believe in the customs of the other nations. Now we're going to prove to you that birthdays, where you find someone every year on the birth of somebody, is evil. It was never our customs. Let's go to Judges. I want you to read Judges chapter 5, verse 11. And I want you to get me Ecclesiastes chapter 7.
Judges chapter 5, verse 11. They that are delivered from the noise of the archers in the place of drawing water, there shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord, even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his villages in Israel. Then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gates.
Right. So it says, back in Judges 5 and 11, it says, they that are delivered from the noise of the archers. This is a future prophecy of us being delivered from the destruction that's going to come to the Americas. Know for surely America will fall. Know for surely will fall. Why? Because all nations fell, from the Romans to the Greeks to the Egyptians to the Persian and Medes to Babylon. They all had to fall because there's one kingdom that's going to reign, and that's the kingdom of Christ when he returns. So it says, they that are delivered from the noise of the archer, from the destruction, in the place of drawing water. Where's that place of drawing water? Here in the Americas. It says, there they shall rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord. So how do we know what are the righteous acts of the Lord? we have to go into the scriptures and find out what did old forefathers do. How did they worship the Most High? What did they celebrate? And we have to rehearse those things. Let's begin. Birthdays. I want you to read Ecclesiastes, and I want you to give me Deuteronomy 16. Give me Ecclesiastes 7 and 7.
Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart.
That's the last part I want. And a gift will destroy the mind. So notice with birthdays, you find, how do they generally draw people in with birthdays? They draw them with gifts. And many of these pagan holidays that you celebrate, like Halloween, which is witchcraft, they get the young kids in by what? Offering them candy. And then that young child likes that, because which child doesn't like candy? And they grow up and they begin to teach their children. Do not be deceived of Satan's devices. Like with Valentine's Day, is the worship of the god Cupid. You give gifts to your sweetheart. Like with Christmas, what do? It's pagan. It was a Babylonian custom that you can find recorded in Jeremiah the 10th chapter. They ply you with what? With gifts. Same thing with birthday. It says, read it again.
Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 7. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart.
And a gift will destroy your mind. It will corrupt you. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 16. And I want you to get for me Genesis 40. You got to read it. 16 verse 19.
16, 19?
Yes.
Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 19. Thou should not rest judgment. Thou should not respect persons, neither take a gift. For a gift doeth blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous.
So it says, a gift will pervert the words of the righteous, and a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise. So that's what it says earlier, a gift destroyeth the heart. It begins to corrupt your mind. So how do they ply you in? They ply you in by giving you gifts. Let's see. Now we're going to go back and see the acts that were rehearsed. Was it the acts of our forefathers, or were the acts of the other nations that celebrated birthdays? Give me Genesis, the 40th chapter, and I'm going to explain it real quick. Genesis chapter 40, and I'm going to read verse 18. Read that for me.
Genesis chapter 40, verse 18. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree. And the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee.
So now Joseph, which was one of the sons of Jacob, he was explaining the dream to the baker and the butler of what was going to transpire to them. And he was telling him here, he was telling that the baker that Pharaoh's going to kill you. Read on.
Verse 20. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday.
Which was what?
Which was Pharaoh's birthday.
We read earlier, envy not your oppressor and choose none of his ways. So here we find Pharaoh, which was an Egyptian, which you know was an African. He was celebrating his birthday. Read on.
That he made a feast unto all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again.
So what we read here was on the birthday of Pharaoh, which was a Hamite, an African, they celebrated his birthday and they killed the baker. Let's go from that to 2 Maccabees. We're going to read in the book of 2 Maccabees. Remember, the scripture tells us, with all thy wisdom, get understanding. We should be able to delve through the scriptures and see what is God's will for us. What are we supposed to do? And if we're doing something that does not fall in line with the Most High's purpose for us, we're to leave it alone. We're to let it go. So far we saw a Hamite keeping. Let's go to 1 Maccabees. I want you to read it there. I want chapter 6, verse 1 through 9. And then I want you to get for me Matthew.
2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God.
Now this king was Antiochus. He was a Greek, which you know today as a Caucasian. The Bible calls them Edomites. He was compelling them, a man of Athens, a Jew, to compel the rest of the Jews to stop keeping God's commandments. Read on.
Verse 2. And to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter, Olympius, and that in garrison of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place.
Right, and to make the temple desolate. Abomination that make it desolate that you read in the book of Daniel. They set up idol worship in the temple. Read on.
Verse 3. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles.
It says was full of riot and reveling. That's that same reveling where we read in 1 Corinthians when it says, and they rose up to play. They began to drink heavily and they began to have wild parties. Like many of you Benjamites have, or what you call so-called West Indians have on Labor Day. You out there in the middle of the street dancing wild, drinking. Many of you so-called Negroes do it in Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Many of you Spanish-speaking tribes, you doing your island like in Brazil. You have carnival. You worship the god of Bacchus, the god of wine and drunkenness and orgies. That's why you women half naked on the street. So what were they doing in the temple? Read it again.
For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots, and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in the things that were not lawful.
They turned the temple into a whorehouse. Read on.
Verse 5. The altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbidded. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath days, or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
So there was a time when we couldn't profess ourselves to be Jews. We couldn't acknowledge that we were the Jews. They were trying to strip us of our heritage. They didn't want us to keep hold of the laws of the Most High because they knew that's where the strength of the so-called Negro, so-called West Indian, so-called Haitian, the indigenous people of North, Central, and South America was. Read on.
Verse 7. And in the day of the king's birth.
Wait a second. And in the day of this Edomite, this Caucasian king's birth, Antiochus Epiphanes,
every month they were brought by bitter constraints to eat of the sacrifices.
Hold on. They were bought by bitter constraint. You understand what that means? They were forcibly beaten. Some was killed to what? To come and fest and feast and keep the king's birth because our forefathers knew we were not to do it. So read that again.
Verse 7. And in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go into possession to Bacchus, carrying ivy.
Right, and when the feast for Bacchus was kept, we was forced to go and worship Bacchus too. But the point about it, this King Antiochus celebrated his birthday every month, and we had to eat the sacrifices. And many of our forefathers fought bitterly not to do it, but you had many more that gave into it. They wanted to follow those ways. So we're going to go from that. I want you to go. So far we got an Egyptian, a Hamite, celebrating birthdays. Then we just read it was a Greek, an Edomite, so-called white man celebrating birthdays. Both of them, death was coming about. They were killing us. Now we're going to go to the New Testament. Let's go to Matthew chapter 14, and I want you to give me verse 6.
Matthew chapter 14, verse 6. But when Herod's birthday was kept.
Herod was an Idumean. He was an Edomite. Caucasian is what you call him today. And he was what you would know as a convert. He was where this Herod, and Herod and his people, they were the descendants of those Edomites that was forcibly made to keep the laws by our forefathers. That's where you get Jewish people from. They're not the real Jews. They took on our customs, and they became what you know today as Jewish. We're not Jewish. We are the Jews the Bible is talking about. So read again.
But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me here John the Baptist's head in a charger. And the king was sorry, nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded to be given to her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison.
So here we go. John the Baptist, an Israelite. He was put to death on the king's birth. So we look. Here we go. We have a Hamite that was put to death. That put people to death. Then we had a Greek that put people to death. Now we have an IUIC, which is another Edomite, putting somebody to death. When are we going to wake up? It's high time. So I'm going to read something to you real quick. I'm going to go to the Strong's Concordance, and I'm going to read in the War of the Jews. All right, this is book 7, chapter 3, verse 1. I'm going to read this. It says, while Titus was in Caesarea, Titus and Vespasian, these were Romans, Edomites, Caucasians. It says, when he was in Caesarea, which was on the coast of the land of Israel, he solemnized the birth of his brother Domitian. He made it a celebration and made it that everybody had to keep it for the birth of his brother Domitian, his birthday. I read it again. While Titus was in Caesarea, he solemnized the birthday of his brother Domitian after the splendid manner, and inflicted a great deal of punishment intended for the Jews in honor of him. For the number of those that were now slain in fighting with beasts and were burnt and fought one with another exceeded 2,500. So on his brother's birth, what did they do? They killed us. They made us fight in their arenas as gladiators, fight against beasts, fight against each other. And all this was to what? To celebrate the birth of his brother. This was an Edomite that was doing this. All right? It says, I'll read this now. After this, Caesar came to Berytus, which is a city in Phoenicia, and the Roman colony, and stayed there a longer time, and exhibited a still more pompous solemnity about his father's birthday, both in magnificence of show and in other vast expenses he was in his device thereunto belonging. So the great multitude of the captives were here destroyed after the same manner as before. So he also held a birthday celebration for his father and was killing us. That's why you understand with little children on birthday. What was one thing kids always did on birthdays? They would give you birthday punches. They would inflict pain on you. Where did they get that from? They were doing an offshoot of what these people were doing. They were punishing us wickedly, killing us. This was not a custom of all people. So I'm reading something else to you. This is in the Josephus. This is the war, Flavius Josephus against Appian. And I'm going to give you the book. It is, bear with me 1 second. It is book 2, and it is, I guess, verse 5, chapter 25. It says, nay, indeed, the Lord does not permit us to make festivals at the birth of our children, and thereby afford occasion of drinking to excess, but it ordains that the very beginning of our education should be immediately directed to sobriety. Sobriety means a clear mind in these laws. It says, it also commands us to bring those children up in the learning and to exercise them in the law and make them acquainted with the acts of their predecessors. We are supposed to make our kids acquainted with the acts of our predecessors, our forefathers. So where do we find out where's? Search the scriptures. It says we're supposed to rehearse that righteous acts. So we're going to read where? Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, what our forefathers did. The Feast of Nicanor, the Feast, the Day of Atonement, the rededication of the altar. We're going to do these days. We're not going to do Christmas, Easter, Halloween, birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Arbor Day, Labor Day. We're supposed to make our children acquainted with the acts of our predecessors. It says, in order to their imitation of them, and have them imitate the works that our forefathers did. Our forefathers didn't celebrate birthdays. Those were Greeks and Romans and Italians and Egyptians, the other nations, the heathens. It says, and that they may be nourished up in the laws from their infancy, and might neither transgress them, nor yet have any pretense for their ignorance of them. Nor can our children say they didn't know, they had ignorance of it. Why? Because we raised them, we commanded them to be raised up in the laws, and we taught them the acts of our predecessors. So let's go from that. Let's see what happens if we didn't decide to do that, and we decided to do different and follow the ways of the nations. What would be the fruits of that? Let's go to the book of Job. Kabash, I want you to read. I want you to read Job chapter 1, and I want you to read verses 1 through 5.
Job chapter 1, verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect, upright, one that feared God and eschewed evil.
Right. Job loved the Most High. He hated evil. Jump on down to verse 4.
Verse 4. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one in his day.
Now Job's sons, they all went to feast in their houses, feast everyone in his day. Read on.
And sent and called their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them.
Right. Read on.
And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all.
So now, if they all just was having a meal or whatever, why would Job raise up in the morning and sanctify them? Meaning what? Set up an offering, a sin offering for them. What was it talking about? Everyone feasted in his day. Let's read on.
For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continue.
So Job continued to this because he said, my children were wicked as hell. It says they all feasted in everyone in his day. What is his day? His day of birth. How do we know that? Let's go to Job chapter 3, and I want you to read verse 1 a bit.
Job chapter 3, verse 1. After this, opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. And Job spake and said, let the day perish wherein I was born.
What day? The day he was born. He cursed his day. So what was his sons doing? They were all feasting in the day of their birth, and they invited their sisters, and they ate and drank. They set up offerings to the other gods. Like many of you don't realize this is what you're doing. When you get that birthday cake, and we're going to get to it, that cake, when you have those drinks, and many of you have birthday parties for your children, you have a daggone Barney there in the morning, but in the afternoon you all got that Hennessy going, and you all tell the kids go to the room, and you all grinding up, getting drunk. How many kids' birthday party you see kids getting killed at these parties? The Most High is dealing with them. Most High is judging them. So we have an example of forefathers that kept the birthdays. And what happened? All of Job's children were put to death. Why? They were envying their oppressors, and they were mingling with the customs of the heathens. Let's go from that to the book of Hosea, chapter 7. Give me a second, let me find it. Hosea chapter 7, and I want verses, I want you to read. Give me chapter 7, verse 5.
Hosea chapter 7, verse 5. In the day of our king was...
In the day of our king, this is what it's talking about, read on.
The princes have made him sick with bottles of wine.
In what day? In the day of his birth, his birthday. The princes got him drunk. So what do more people do on birthday? Yo, come on, we're going to get you some liquor. Let's get drunk. Let's get some drinks. I don't know, it's your birthday. You don't buy nothing here. Another drink, another shot. We was doing it here. Read it again.
Verse 5. In the day of our king, the princes The princes have made him sick with bottles of wine. He stretched out his hand with scorners. For they have made ready their heart like an oven. While they lie in wait, their baker sleepeth all the night. In the morning it burns as a flaming fire.
He was saying like a little leaven the whole lump. He stretched his hand out with scorners. Those that scorned against God, he dealt with them. And they said, come on, kid, here's some more. Drink. It's your birthday. Don't worry about it. They drink. I'm telling you something. You ought to search these scriptures. Search them, for in them you think you have eternal life. You better understand that these customs were never named amongst us. These were the other nations. All right, let's go from that. I want to go to Isaiah chapter 65. Bear, I want you, no, because Kabash, I want you to read. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for something real quick. Look, I'll precept with this real quick. Bear with me. Okay, good. Give me Isaiah chapter 65, and I want you to read verse 11.
Isaiah chapter 65, verse 11. But ye are they that forsake the Lord, that forget my holy mountain, and that prepare a table for that truth, and that furnish the table for the drink offering unto that number.
Right. So Isaiah will say, he says, but ye are they that have forsaken the Lord, that have forgot my holy mountain. What is God's holy mountain? His laws. This is the government of Israel. This is our bylaws. This is what we follow. We forsook it and put it aside. And what it said we do? It says, and prepared a table for that troop. Now remember, this scripture, you have to understand, this scripture is used twofold. Sometimes you have scriptures that are twofold, threefold. It has more than one meaning. But we're going to keep it in the time period that it's talking about. It said that you prepared a table for that troop. What is that talking about? And before I read this, I'm going to explain something to you. That scripture also explains about when Esau and Edomites came to the side of the land and the Native American Indians prepared a table for them. They gave them a place to eat. They took care of them. They gave them drink. But in the time period we're talking about now, we're going to see what it means, that truth. So it says, that prepared a table for that truth. We're in the Strong's Concordance, all right? And we're going to go to 1408 in the Hebrew. It says, Gad, a variation. Fortune, a Babylonian deity. So there's a Babylonian deity by the name of Fortune. And a female version that's called Fortuna. Is a Babylonian deity. And it says what? That troop. So what were they doing back in the time of Isaiah? Remember, who did we fall for? Who did we fall into right after Isaiah? In the time of Jeremiah? The Babylonians. We were setting up a feast to the god of fortune. I'll read it again. Gad, a variation, because Gad means troop also. It says a variation of Gad, not the natural Gad tribe. It says fortune, a Babylonian deity, that troop. So it says right here, it says, but ye are they that have forsaken the Lord, and forgot my holy mountain, my laws, and prepared a table, a offering to that Babylonian god of fortune. And first a drink offering to that number. Let's see what that number is talking about. We're here in the Hebrew again, the Strongs. This is 4507. It says, many, apportioner, fate, as an idol, number. So, you were setting up, or forefathers were setting up a drink offering to the god of fate. Let's read it from the top. Read it verse 11.
Isaiah chapter 65, verse 11. But ye are they that forsake the Lord, that forget my holy mountain, and that prepare a table for that truth.
For that Babylonian deity.
And that furnish the drink offering unto that number.
To the god of fate. So what were they doing? They were serving offerings to the god of fortune and fate. That's why many of you put those candles in the birthday cake and you say, blow it out and make a wish. You make a wish to the God of fortune and fate. You don't go to the Most High to be your preserver, to take care of you. You set up these things. You have the table full of food, alcohol, drinks for the kids. All of that, unbeknownst to you, is you worship another God. Now let me make something clear to you. You don't got to know that you worship a God to worship Him. He don't need you to know. He just needs you to worship Him. And that's what you, oh, well, that's not how I mean it. The Bible says, abstain from all appearance of evil. Every time we read it, it was the other nations. And when we did it, what did the Most High do? He judged us. Watch this real quick. I'm going to the Prophet's Dictionary. I'll read something to you real quick. Okay, it says, fortune telling can also be a result of sorcery, whereas origins and objects are best explained as lot or fate casting. Sorcery. So, what was fortune doing with it? Dealing with fate, these two gods, and it was sorcery. It was witchcraft. That's why the Most High judged Job's son and his daughters, because that's why Job had to set up an offering. That's why these wicked men were giving the king drink in the day of his birth. That's why the Lord was saying that here. Read verse 12.
Verse 12. Therefore will I number you to the sword.
What?
Therefore will I number you to the sword. Ye shall all bow down to the slaughter, because when I called, ye did not answer, and when I spake, ye did not hear.
That better not be you, because right now the Lord is calling you. The prophets of the Lord are telling you right now, you better leave it alone, and you better answer. And if you say it don't matter, then you're rebellious. And I know I'm speaking to Israelites right now. I pray that this is you're receiving this and getting understanding. Christians, you first got to understand you got to keep the commandments. Because for some reason, you all think you're absolved of God's laws. Read on.
But did evil before mine eyes, and did choose that where I delighted not.
You choose the ways of your oppressor. You choose the ways of the other nations. You learn their ways when He commands us not to do those things. Let's go from that. I want 1 Thessalonians 5:22. I want you to read that for me, Kabash. I want you to get for me Psalm 64. Read.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 2. For yourselves know perfect.
5:22.
5:22. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 22. Abstain from all appearance of evil.
What did the Bible say?
Abstain from all appearance of evil.
Do not partake in anything that might appear to be evil. You know?
And the very God of peace sanctify you wholly.
Right, and the very God of peace will sanctify you as holy. So if it appears to be evil, here you go. Egyptians kept it. The Greeks kept it. The Romans kept it. Job's children kept it, was put to death. King Hosea was put to death. He said he put his hands to scorners. We read over and over again. Isaiah 65:11, we show that Moses said, I'm going to number you to the sword. That should be enough precepts for you to recognize that it's wicked and abstain from it. So it's not about, it's my little baby girl and it's her birthday party and I promise to make her happy. You're teaching her evil. You're bringing wrath upon your household. Let's go to Psalm 64, verse. I want you to read verse 1 and jump on down to verse 5.
Psalm chapter 64, verse 1.
I'm sorry, give me Ephesians 6. Go.
Psalm chapter 64, verse 1. Hear my voice, O God, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy.
It says, preserve my life from the fear of the enemy. Jump on down.
Verse 5. They encourage themselves in an evil manner.
It says they encourage themselves in an evil manner. Read on.
They commune of laying snares privily.
They commune of laying snares secretly. That's what through this whole earth right now is in disarray. It's in disorder. It is full of pure. America is full of pure wickedness. They lay snares to entrap you. That's why they say, hey, we're going to give candies to the kids. We're going to try to mold their mind. Understand the mind that has worked. these nations to keep God's children, which are you so-called Negroes, Hispanic, and Native American Indians, separated from God's laws. Read that verse again.
Verse 5. They encourage themselves in an evil manner. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? They search.
And they said they commune privily. It says that they commune and lay snares privily. All the other nations, the so-called white man, East Indian, Chinese, Japanese, African man, they all have conspired against God's children. And the reason why is because the Most High didn't choose all nations. And they found ways to keep us separated from our gods through unlawful foods to eat, through worshiping of all these pagan days. Man, even to the basest Christian mind, you should understand that Halloween is witchcraft. Even to the most simplest minds in Christianity should understand that Christmas is not the birth of Christ. And the book of Jeremiah tells you that it's evil. Even to the basis of all minds, you should see the examples of birthdays and see that it was evil. If you continue on, it's because the gospel is hid from you and your rebellious spirit. Read that verse again. Verse 6.
Verse 6. They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search.
So don't think these other nations are stupid. The intellect, the blue bloods of all these other nations, they know who God's children are. They're not deceived. They know who we are. And they know what their plan is to keep us like this in this dumb state of mind. Because they know once we return to God's laws through his son Jesus the Christ, that they cannot stop us. We're going to come back together as one nation. And Christ is going to redeem his children. Read on.
Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep.
And their mind is deep, full of deceit, full of tricks. Go from that to Ephesians 6, verse 11. I want you to give me Psalms. There where you at. Give me Psalms 119.
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
Well, this is put on all the whole armor of God, meaning put on all these commandments. Because if you don't, you leave yourself vulnerable to fall to the wiles, the tricks of the devil. He lay privily to keep you in breaking God's commandments. So you have to put on the commandments. You got to see it and say, God don't want me to do it. I'm going to let it go. So our sisters say, well, God's not going to kill me if I eat a little pork. Come on, listen. That's not how God is, please. God, girls and sisters will say, God's not going to kill me. You going to tell me God's going to kill me if I wear pants? Yes, sister, if you wear pants, God's going to kill you. Brothers will say, well, brother, you can't shop on the Sabbath. Brother, you're being over-righteous. All right, then if you say I'm being over-righteous, we'll see what the judgment. Because God's law said don't do it. Put on all God's commandments that you can clearly discern between God's word. Read on.
For we rest not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and have done all to stand.
Right. So it's to take on all God's commandments. So if you find a commandment of God that for some reason you don't want to keep, you leave a provision in your flesh to fulfill the lust thereof and destroy yourself. Don't let birthdays be one of those things that you just can't get over because it's my mama's birthday and I love my mama and I gotta be there. I gotta bring her cake. Let's go real quick. I want to go. What I have at home, Psalm 119. Yes, hold that. I want you to give me Jeremiah 7. You hold Psalm 119. Jeremiah chapter 7, I want verse 15.
Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 15. I will cast you out of my sight, as I have cast out all of your brethren, even the whole seed of Ephraim. Therefore, pray not thou for this people, neither lift up thy cry for prayer for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear thee. Seest thou not what they do in the cities of Judah, in the streets of Jerusalem.
Let's see what they do in the streets of Jerusalem, why God said don't pray for them. Read on.
Verse 18. The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the woman knead the dough, and make cakes to the Queen of Heaven.
They make cakes to the Queen of Heaven. It's likewise with birthdays. Y'all make cakes to worship the God of fortune, the God of fate. They make cakes to the Queen of Heaven. Who's the Queen of Heaven today? What you known as? What you call that white Jesus mama, Mary. That's the Queen of. In the Old Testament, her name was Ashtoreth. In the New Testament, is Diana, Easter, Ishtar. That many of you follow. Easter, the day you celebrate with the eggs and that foolishness. The goddess of fertility. So they were doing it from back then. They make cakes to the Queen of Heaven.
And to pour out drink offerings.
And they pour out drink offerings like you do. You make meat and drink offerings to these other gods.
Unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger.
And then you provoke the Most High to anger. But for us, we won't do so. Let's go back to Psalms 119, verse 125 through 128.
Psalms 119.
I had them read it for me.
Psalm chapter 119, verse 125. I am thy servant. Give me understanding that I may know thy testimonies.
You said, Lord, we're your servant. Give us understanding that we might know your testimonies, your laws. Make clear to us what your will is. Read on.
It is time for thee, Lord, to work, for they have made void thy law.
There's some time, Lord, there's going to come a time when you have to work and work, because many of our people, they make void God's laws like it's insignificant. Read on.
Therefore, I love thy commandments above gold. Yea, above fine gold.
Meaning there's nothing more important to us than God's commandments. Whatever God say to do, we're going to do. Read on.
Therefore I esteem all thy precepts concerning all things to be right, and I hate every false way.
So if you have a brother or sister that says there's a commandment that you really don't got to keep it, like brothers told me before, speaking to them, I said, brother, listen, today's the Sabbath day, man. You can't go out there and go shop right now. The sun is setting. The sun's set already. Brother, you're being over righteous, man. You can't do that. What you mean? Come on, please. I don't want to hear that. Listen, it says, therefore I esteem all thy precepts concerning all things to be right. If God said you can't do it, then you can't do it. That's it. And if you try to make allowances for it, to break God's commandments and teach men so, you should be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Let's go real quick. I'm going to digress. Let's explain that real quick. You give me that in Matthew. You go to Psalms 66. Isaiah 66. Let's explain that real quick in Matthew. Just digress real quick. You got it?
Yep. Start at verse 19.
Yeah.
Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so.
So whoever breaks the least commandment of Most High, like, I can shop on the Sabbath day. Come on, you brothers be all righteous. God ain't gonna punch me if sister said if I wear pants. What I do in my bedroom with my wife it's nobody's business. If I do something that's unlawful, I bring another woman to bed. I bring a goat in the bed. Nobody's business. If I want to wear women's underwear, it's nobody's business. If you break the least commandments,
he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven.
You're going to be called least. Now, many people think least in the kingdom of heaven meaning that you're going to die and come back and be in the kingdom of heaven and be raised up. It ain't talking about that. What is the least in the kingdom of heaven for somebody that breaks the commandments and teach men so? Let's see what that's talking about. Isaiah 66, you got it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, read it for me, Ben.
Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23, 22. For as the new heavens and new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass.
So he's talking about in the kingdom.
And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another.